Coming up now on Animal Outtakes, a legendary lizard. It's the story of Green Day, how a community effort saved this iguana's life, and why his non-native status could have meant the end of the road for this sunshine-loving lizard.
It is important. A single life is important.
Plus a life-saving lesson for canine owners. We're learning about CPR for your four-legged friend. We go behind the scenes of an important training class at Dante's Den. And it's that time of year again. The manatees at Mote Marine are making their official Super Bowl picks. This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. We here at Animal Outtakes call the state of Florida home. And in the Sunshine State, there are rules and regulations to try and keep our beautiful piece of paradise a healthy environment for the native species. Quite often, non-native species have made their way into our waters, and in the case of an iguana called Green Day, up into our trees. Recently, the community of Cape Coral banded together and raised thousands of dollars to make sure the value of this one life meant something.
We're at Rotary Park in Cape Coral, Florida, which is a city park and the finest park in all of Cape Coral. People now are so separated from nature, particularly the children, right? And being able to come out, especially on a day like today, a beautiful blue sky day, to be able to feel what it's like to be outside. Humans were made to live outside, not inside. We were designed to live outside. So people think better, act better, feel better when they can be part of nature. And of course, being part of nature means animals, the other creatures on the planet that we share the planet with. So the more you can learn about them and watch them, the more we can learn about some better ways to live on this planet. Green Day's right up here. He's posing for his public right now. Yeah, he's the star of the show right there. That's the man. Green Day, the man, the myth, the legend. 2010, we had a cold spell. And when I say cold spell, maybe it was 38, 39, something. I know it didn't freeze, but the iguana is a reptile, a cold-blooded creature, and iguanas in cool temperatures go paralyzed and they fall out of the trees, because mostly green iguanas live in trees. That's where they live. So he fell out of a tree. Somebody, picked him up, kept him for a while, but then decided that they didn't really want to keep him, and they brought him to the park. And so since then, he has lived at Rotary Park. For the first few years, he lived in the butterfly house when he wasn't big. And then he got too large for the butterfly house, and they built him a really nice enclosure right by the front of the park. So Green Day became a park celebrity. Everyone that came to the park knew Green Day. We had ladies who would shop at organic stores just to come and feed him special food. He's very docile. He's a large animal. He's a full-grown male green iguana. He lived right there where people would come and talk to him all the time. So he's a very social animal. He was used to having people visit him and talk to him and stuff. So when he was sent over here, especially before we painted it, he was like in exile over here, because there was nothing about this enclosure that would make anybody want to stop and even look at it. In 2021, the Florida Wildlife Commission decided to change the rules for enclosures for invasive species, and the green iguana is considered an invasive species. So they had a hard time coming up with exactly what they wanted, but they finally came up with something like this, like a bomb shelter, right? Theory being, if a hurricane came, the enclosure wouldn't be destroyed and the animals wouldn't be released. So I think they thought this would be their step forward to control permitted animals. He has a permit, he has a chip, okay? He has a chip. All these animals are chipped, just like your dog would be, okay? There's a record of who they are and where they came from, and there's a permit involved in even possessing them. So he is well controlled, rest assured. Well, I've known Green Day for a long time, 10, 11, 12 years, right? And I worked most of my life in the butterfly house, which is right across from his enclosure, so I know how many people talk to him, visit him, relate to him, right? He's very non-threatening, like our tortoises, right? Very non-threatening animal. He's a vegetarian, okay? He's never hurt anybody. So just by his proximity to all the visitors that come to the park, a lot of people had an attachment to him. You know, there's people that walk here every day, walk their dogs, walk themselves, ride their bikes, you know, there's a lot of people that come to this beautiful park. And so when it became known about the dilemma that he was going to be euthanized, okay? The FWC was going to come in and they were going to take him and they were going to euthanize him, which means kill, okay, if we didn't build this enclosure. So the Cape Coral Friends of Wildlife, who we have our meetings here, you know, so we're very closely attached to Rotary Park, therefore we have an attachment to Green Day. So we decided we would put up some money for the cage, and then the Rotary Club, which is one of the most active nonprofits in the city, they decided they would step up and put up the money. The last $3,000, we set up a GoFundMe on Facebook, I think, for his friends to donate to him. We had people, I'm not kidding, you can ask the girls inside, little girls would come in with tears in their eyes and put a $5 bill in the jar. His friends, the people that would shop for him stuff, would come in and just put, well, one lady put a $50 bill in the jar. So this was cash donations and then stuff through Facebook. We got another $3,000. I know one lady gave $1,000. She came here and talked to me one day about it, that he meant that much to her. And with the $3,000, which is the truly beautiful part, we hired a fantastic mural artist to paint some of the other wildlife in Cape Coral on his enclosure so that it wouldn't look like a restroom or a bomb shelter. So it would look like something special, which it is something very special, a community's involvement in the life of one green iguana. He has a soul, he does. I mean, anybody that thinks they don't, and it's easy for people that spend no time around animals to think that they don't have a soul or a mind or an individual personality. But once you're with them and spend time with them, you know they do, and you can't deny it. So then it becomes much more difficult to be cruel to them and to do cruel things to them. It is important. A single life is important. If he hadn't been picked up and brought in here 15 years ago, he would have had a normal iguana life. He's a big male iguana. He would have been able to breed with other iguanas. He would have had a normal life. I'm just saying, you know, he didn't have a choice in the matter. Actually now, with all these new restrictions, and you can see how the cage is built, nobody else can feed him. Only the permit holder is allowed to feed him or interact with him. There were quite a few fans of Green Day that were very upset and, you know, kind of accused us of mistreating him and everything. And, you know, I had a couple news people come and talk to me about that, and I said, listen, none of this was our idea, okay? But the whole enclosure that's 4 feet of concrete where he had all open for sun, for air, for everything before. He would just, if he was over in that one right now, he'd just be down on the ground on the stones getting warm. And now he has to spend, especially in the wintertime, he has to spend most of his life up here because it's the only place he can get sun. In my opinion, it just comes from human arrogance, thinking that we know more than that tortoise over there, right? His evolution, right? This animal remains virtually unchanged for millions and millions of years, so it must be a good design, right?
For more about Green Day or the Cape Coral Friends of Wildlife, You can follow them on social media or log on to ccfriendsofwildlife.org. Coming up next on Animal Outtakes, CPR for dogs. What we're learning could save your pet's life. That's next.
Every dolphin at Clearwater Marine Aquarium has an amazing tale. They're all rescues who have overcome challenges to survive and thrive. You'll be inspired by every animal story and unforgettable moments with them, including 2-year-old Apollo, our newest rescued dolphin. There's something inspirational for every kid, and kid at heart. Your visit directly supports the animal care and rescue efforts at Clearwater Marine Aquarium, celebrating 50 years of amazing tales.
Good morning, Mr. Benson. Your breakfast is served.
Time for another day in doggy paradise. I sure am one lucky pup.
Mr. Benson, would you like to go out for your morning stroll? The weather is quite lovely today.
That sounds wonderful. Don't mind if I do. After all that exercise, I think I'd like to lounge by the pool and maybe dip my paws in.
As you wish, sir. Right this way.
What a perfect day. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else but Dante's Den while Mom and Dad are away.
At Dante's Den, we pride ourselves in providing the best experience for your beloved pup. Whether it be a day, a month, or a year, Dante's Den should always be at the top of your list for boarding. With an expansive campus, your dog will enjoy daily walks, pool time, and an endless supply of love. Even better, it's all under 24/7 supervision from our wonderful staff. If you're anything like us, your dog's safety and happiness come first. To learn more about Dante's Den, visit dantesden.org.
CPR stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It's a life-saving technique that's useful in many emergencies for humans. But what about your pet? Experts say it can be an effective tool to save your dog's life, but you have to know the proper technique to have your best shot at being successful. Let's take a look.
Well, CPR for pets, it's very similar to what we do for humans. I mean, the concept is all the same. You want to be able to give a rescue breath if a pet's not breathing, and you want to be able to give productive compressions on a pet so that if its heart's not beating, you can get its heart beating again. So in terms of life-saving and what we do for both pets and for humans, the concept's the same. Dogs, cats, all of them. I mean, I think we've helped goats before. We've helped pygmy goats, bunnies, so the concept and the methods are the same, and it only differs, just like in human CPR, it differs regarding the size of the patient. So you're not going to do the same compressions and breaths on an adult as you would a baby, and it's the same, you're not going to do the same compressions and breaths on a St. Bernard as you would a cat. It's really important to learn how to do it the right way because, as we saw on the football field just a couple of weeks ago, it saves lives. Does it always save lives? No, but everybody I know with a pet or that cares for pets wants to be able to do something. So you want to be able to take some type of action. So getting training in pet CPR and first aid is really important. I mean, there's no substitute for veterinary care. Of course, you're going to be doing these steps on your way to a vet, but if you can buy that pet just a few minutes, keep that heart beating, keep some breaths in it, it can make all the difference in the world, especially depending upon, what caused it to have a crisis in the first place. If an animal is unconscious, you want to check first for the ABCs, the airway, breathing, and circulation. if an animal is not breathing, then you know you have to give it rescue breaths. Now with animals, it's not automatic that its heart isn't beating. A lot of times they do go hand in hand, but there are times where they may not be breathing, but their heart's still beating. And you never want to do compressions on an animal whose heart is still beating. So you do need to go through the progression and check. I tell people this is a slow down moment. You know, your adrenaline's running, you want to help, but you need to check and make sure if it's not breathing, then you need to check to make sure the heart's beating or not. Because you can just give rescue breaths. We've revived pets before just with rescue breathing because its heart was okay. Now if the heart is not beating, you do have to get that heart started and give breaths at the same time. Choking, seizures, sometimes they go down because they have a heart condition, they may have a lung condition. Those are really the main ones that I can think of top of my head. Drowning, you know, any type of drowning. I think it's important because, again, every pet owner I know, even if they don't own a pet, but they like to go to pet events, they love to support pet companies and industries, you want to be able to take action. You know, and what I was telling the class, I hear even more so, you don't want to do something wrong. You don't want to make a situation worse. So whenever somebody sees a pet, you know, it's our mission, it's our goal to be able to help anybody, whether it's a person or whether it's especially a pet, because, you know, they're our mission. We have to care for them, right? So we want to be able to help them. So by taking pet CPR and first aid, you'll at least be able to cut that panic and know what type of steps that you need to do. You'll also need to, you'll know your resources, who's your help, you know, because I might be able to revive a pet out here, but if I don't know where my nearest emergency hospital is or my nearest vet is, then that's going to be for naught. So part of the class also is how to be prepared, who your resources are, where they are, who's the closest, so that you can do the very most that you can to help that pet have a better outcome. No practicing on your own pets, no. I've got mannequins, I've got stuffed animals. Never practice CPR on your own pets. Now what you do want to do with your own pets is you want to learn their vitals, you know, their normal gum color, their normal heart rate, their normal breathing rate, how much they defecate, urinate, how they eat, so that you can be sensitive to any changes that go on with them, so that you'll know whether or not you might have an emergency on your hands. That's what you want to do with your living well pets. Never practice CPR on a well pet.
As always with any medical emergency involving your pet, it is vital to consult your veterinarian first and foremost. Stay with us. There's more Animal Outtakes coming up next. The tradition continues. Hugh and Buffett are manatees who reside at Mote Marine Laboratory and Aquarium in Sarasota, Florida. And every year, they make their official Super Bowl picks. This year, Hugh is predicting that the Kansas City Chiefs will take the top trophy, while Buffett says it's all about the Philadelphia Eagles winning. The annual Super Bowl prediction is an opportunity for Mote to highlight their training program. Staff say one of the primary basic behaviors animals learn is a target behavior. They figure out how to approach a target for a reward. Aside from predicting the Super Bowl, this allows workers to ensure each animal gets their proper diet and supplements during feeding. Now, for anyone keeping score, Buffett has been right 11 out of 15 times. Hugh has predicted correctly 6 out of 9 times. I'd say that's not too bad for a manatee. And we'll be right back.
Did you know that Mote is leading the charge to fight Florida red tide by testing compounds that may lessen its harmful effects on the environment? The more you know about everything Mote's doing to help our oceans, the more you'll understand why Mote matters. Visit mote.org today.
For 40 years, I'd been burying my emotions and all of the trauma.
I was grasping desperately for independence and hope. I found it with a tail and a cold nose.
I call him my battle buddy, because every time we're out in the public, he has my back.
Every time those demons start talking, he knows, and he's right there at my side. Mustang truly did save my life.
Well, we're here with Dr. Greiner again, and we're so glad to have you because we learned so much in a very short length of time. And one of the terms that you've thrown out at us is immunotherapy. What is it?
As the name implies, it's using your immune system to help treat disease. And in the past, it's been fairly limited because we've had the inability to make large quantities of antibodies. But now we have a couple of specific immunotherapies that are commercially available, one for dogs and treating allergies and one for cats and treating arthritis of all things. The immunotherapy for dogs, we discovered somewhat accidentally several years ago that there's a chemical in the body called interleukin 31. And so they came out with some drugs that would actually block the receptors for that, that help with allergies. But then they discovered that if we make an antibody that actually takes that out of the bloodstream, that will actually stop your allergies. Interleukin 31 is responsible for about 80% of the symptoms of allergies in dogs. So we're finding it to be very effective. When that antibody is administered, it actually combines with that interleukin 31 in the bloodstream, and that's taken out of the bloodstream by your white blood cells, particularly macrophages. So it actually gets used up, the immunoglobulin, in doing that process, but it lasts for about anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. So one injection will keep you out of allergies for 6 or 8 weeks. For cats, there is a mediator called nerve growth factor, which up until a few years ago we did not even know existed. And it turns out that if we can take that out of the joints by giving this immunoglobulin, just an injection under the skin, that nerve growth factor actually stimulates the receptors on the nerve endings that are responsible for perceiving pain. So if we can reduce that, it reduces the perception of pain. But we also found that it recruits white blood cells and causes inflammation of the joints. So if you can eliminate that nerve growth factor in the joint, it actually reduces the inflammation. So not only the perception of pain, but also the inflammation that causes that pain is reduced by giving this immunoglobulin. And again, it gets used up as it combines with that nerve growth factor, but it lasts for about a month and tremendously reduces arthritis pain in cats, which thank God, because the anti-inflammatory drugs that we'd use for dogs really are adversely affecting cats. So we have very limited options for treating arthritis in cats. So this drug is a godsend. Now, other immunotherapies in the future, and particularly in human research, cancer. If we can identify markers on cancer cells that are unique to that cell and put an immunoglobulin in there, we can actually kill the cancer cells. And so I believe the future of cancer therapy, rather than the poisons that we use now, in the future will be immunoglobulins, and specifically use your immune system to wipe out those tumors. That'll be a much healthier way to fight cancer than taking poison.
Do you see that as happening within our lifetime, within the next lifetime?
Certainly.
You do?
Certainly. I think within the next few years. And it's amazing to me that the manufacturers can actually make commercially available levels of immunoglobulins. Our body spits them out routinely, but in the lab, it's always been very difficult to do so. So they've made tremendous progress in coming up with some of these products. And the other thing I like about them is that they will not affect your metabolism. Some of the drugs that we take really adversely affect your metabolism. And particularly, for example, all these cholesterol drugs that we take. Cholesterol is not a useless chemical in your body. All of your hormones come from cholesterol. So when you take cholesterol lowering drugs, it really affects the rest of your body. So if we can figure out in immunotherapy to attack the cholesterol receptors that line the blood vessels and accumulate cholesterol, that may be literally a cure for heart disease. So the future's looking bright. We just need to live long enough to take advantage of it.
Right. And once again, we thank you so much for enlightening us.
Thank you for having me, Marcia.
We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. And we'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching.